Rizal's completion of the Bachillere en Artes at Ateneo Municipal entitled him for admission to higher studies at the university. Although Doña Chodora was opposed to Rizal's pursuit of higher education for fear of what might happen to him due to the martyrdom of Gumbursa, Don Francisco decided to send him to UST, the Dominican University of the Philippines. Rizal was not certain of what course to pursue after graduating with honors at Ateneo. He was quite uncertain as to what career to pursue. His former Jesuit mentors were suggesting that Rizal should take either priesthood or farming. Rizal considered going into literature, law, or medicine. His brother Pasiano discouraged him to pursue law, owing to his belief that Rizal will not be able to practice the profession later due to the political condition in the country during those times. Uncertain of what to take up, the 16-year-old Rizal enrolled the course Philosophy and Letters. During his freshman year at UST, in the first place, the said course was what his father wanted him to pursue. Secondly, his decision to enroll in the said academic program could also be attributed to his failure to solicit the advice of Father Ramon Pablo, director of Ateneo, who was then in Mindanao at that time. He, therefore, found himself taking up courses in cosmology, metaphysics, theodicy, and history of philosophy. It was also during this term that Rizal enrolled surveying course at Ateneo. As expected, Rizal performed outstandingly in the aforementioned vocational course. He was conferred the title on November 25, 1881, since he was underage when he passed the final examination in this course. After his freshman year, Rizal shifted his course from philosophy and letters to medicine. This was brought about by two factors. He was advised by Father Ramon to pursue the course. Owing to his mother's failing eyesight, Rizal felt that he should finish medicine so that he could cure his mother's physical ailment. Rizal's academic performance at UST was not comparable with how he fared in Ateneo. Close examination of his scholastic records from 1878 to 1882 attest to his mediocre performance then. 1877 to 1878, Philosophy and Letters. Cosmology and Metaphysics, excellent. Theodicy, excellent. History of Philosophy, excellent. 1878 to 1879, First Year Medicine. Physics, fair. Chemistry, excellent. Natural History, fair. Anatomy 1, good. Dissection 1, good. 1879 to 1880, Second Year Medicine. Anatomy 2, good. Dissection 2, good. Physiology, good. Private Hygiene, good. Public Hygiene, good. 1880 to 1881, Third Year Medicine. General Pathology, fair. Therapeutics, excellent. Surgery, good. 1881 to 1882, Fourth Year Medicine. Medical Pathology, very good. Surgical Pathology, very good. Obstetrics, very good. Why then did the brilliant Rizal perform poorly at UST? In the first place, Rizal did not enjoy his schooling here. His unhappiness at UST can be traced to three factors, namely, the hostility of Dominican professor to Rizal, racial discrimination against Filipino student, and obsolete and repressive method of instruction at UST. There were three factors that could really explain his below-par academic performance at UST, namely, medicine, not Rizal's vocation, dissatisfaction with the Dominican system of education, and the exciting distraction of youth. From Rizal's scholastic records, it was obvious that he was not a good material for a medical course. His grades in most of his medical subjects were generally average, indicating that medicine was not his real vocation but in the arts. He was not also satisfied with the system of education at UST. This might probably be due to the Jesuit discipline he went through where professors were encouraging and understanding, which in effect provided him the motivation to develop his talents. This dissatisfaction with the Dominican system could also be due to obsolete and repressive method of teaching utilized by the Dominican professors. Rizal stressed that in his novel El Filibusterismo, through Father Millon, the professor in physics, and Placido Penitente, one of the Filipino students in the upper-mentioned subject, in the Philip, Rizal through Placido deplored how instruction in science was done in the university and how Spanish professors treated Filipino students who had the potential to excel in class. This is no longer true today, considering that UST is one of the best higher education institutions in the country. In addition to the two factors cited, Rizal's unsatisfactory performance can also be attributed to the exciting destruction of youth he experienced as a student in Manila. Rizal became fascinated with women during his student days at UST. At first, he became infatuated with Segunda Katigbak of Batangas, whom he visited often in her boarding house frequently. When he learned that Segundina was to be married, he turned his eyes on other women. In fact, at that time, that he was courting Leonor or Orang Valenzuela and Leonor Rivera. After learning that Orang was already engaged with other men, Rizal concentrated his efforts on Leonor Rivera, his first cousin. From this, we could infer that Rizal became very busy with other things, which probably reduced the time he could spend with his medical studies. He joined parties, took part in gang fights, and even cut classes. No wonder his academic performance was affected. Liberal ideas came to be felt in Manila than in any place in the Philippines. The influx of liberal ideas can be attributed to the ending of the Spanish Civil Wars, the opening of the Suez Canal, and the opening of the Philippines to world trade. Filipino students in Manila came to be affected by the entry of these liberal ideas in the country. They desired to understand and explain everything. This stemmed from their exposure to three important revolutions of the 19th century in the country. Revolution of the senses against the worldliness of monasticism, revolution of human reason against the comforting certitudes of the catechism, and revolution of race and nation against inequality and subjection. Rizal and his colleagues were cognizant of all these developments. Thus, they desired to reap scientific and artistic achievement. Inasmuch as there was virtually no opportunity for intellectual pursuit in the realm of science, the cultivation of literature and the arts were taken seriously. To encourage the production of literary works in Manila, the Liceo Artistico Literario de Manila, an organization of art lovers in the city, conducted regular competition in literary writing. Rizal joined the contest, sponsored by this association in 1879 and 1880. His entries, a la Juventud Filipina, or to the Filipino Youth, and El Consejo de los Dioses, the Council of the Gods, were adjudged as the best entry in the said competition. He joined the competition to prove one thing, that the Filipinos can equal and even surpass the Spaniards in literary prowess. Three of the best literary works Rizal wrote as a university student were the following: A la Juventud Filipina, El Consejo de los Dioses, a Filipinas and Junto al Pasig, A la Juventud Filipina, or to the Filipino Youth. This poem was Rizal's entry in the 1879 literary contest conducted by the Liceo Artistico Literario de Manila. He was then 18 years old. As already pointed out, this poem was Rizal's entry to the 1879 literary contest of Liceo Artistico de Manila. It won the grand prize in the competition, with Rizal receiving a silver quill for demonstrating his prowess in poetry. As pointed out, A la Juventud Filipina was a classic in Philippine literature for two reasons. First, it was the first great poem in Spanish written by a Filipino, recognized by the Spanish authorities. Second, it was the first expression of the nationalistic concept that the Filipinos were the fair hope of the motherland. In essence, the poem can be considered Rizal's first testimony of his nationalism. In this literary piece, he clearly referred to the Philippines as his motherland, mi patria. The Spanish jury failed to recognize the political implication of the poem. It regarded Spain as the patria mentioned by Rizal in the poem. Conversely, Rizal used the term to mean the Philippines. Rizal therefore was the first Filipino, considering that he was the first to call the country his motherland. Another important point that Rizal stressed in the poem relates to the role of the youth in nation building. From the poem he called the youth the fair hope of the motherland, la bella esperanza de la patria mía. For the youth to really be the fair hope of the motherland, Rizal challenged the youth of his day to do three things: to cultivate their talents in the arts, to develop their knowledge of the sciences, and to look forward and break their chain of bondage. El Consejo de los Dioses. This play was Rizal's entry in the literary contest of 1880. It was an allegory in praise of Cervantes as a co-equal of Homer and Virgil. The entry was judged the best entry in the competition that year. The jury, however, upon discovering that its author was a Filipino, decided to confer the grand prize to a Spaniard. Although Rizal was not able to receive the much coveted award, he was able to disprove the alleged superiority of the Spaniards over the Filipinos and to prove that the Filipinos can compete with other races in a fair play. Junto al Pasig. It is a one-act play written by Rizal at the request of the Jesuit and was staged at Ateneo in connection with the celebration of the feast day of Immaculate Conception. This play, according to Guerrero, can be interpreted in several ways. The play can be considered as a prophecy of 50 years of revolution, after invasion, defeat, subjugation, and civil tumult. It can also be read as a continuation of Rizal's appeal for the Filipino youth to chide alien people for causing them misery. It can also be interpreted as a purely religious allegory, as the play depicted Leonido together with a choir of angels successfully driving Satan and his devils out of the land. Filipinas. This sonnet was written by Rizal in 1880 not only to praise the Philippines for its beauty but to encourage Filipino artists to glorify the country through their artworks. Student activism at UST. Rizal displayed his leadership in student activism when he was pursuing philosophy and medicine at UST. He espoused the cause of brown-skinned Filipino students against the Spanish and Mestizo students, as both the Spanish and Mestizo student labeled the Filipinos Indio or Chongo. Rizal and his peers retaliated by calling them Castilla or Bangus. Bitter hostility existed between these two groups of students at UST. This hostility, motivated by racial animosity, often interrupted in student rumbles in the university campus and even in the streets of Manila. Being the leader of his fellow Filipino students, Rizal figured prominently in these brawls owing to his skill in fencing and wrestling, coupled with his resolute courage. There was even a time when Rizal was wounded due to a skirmish Filipino students had with Spanish students at Escolta, Manila. In order to show their Spanish detractors that Filipino students were united, Rizal organized a secret society of Filipino students. This society came to be called Compañerismo. The members called themselves Companions of Jehu, the Patriot General of the Jews. Rizal naturally became the president of this secret society, with Galiciano Apacible as secretary. Rizal activism was also expressed in his bold criticism of the defective and outmoded university education of his time. He criticized the humiliating treatment of brown Filipino students, who were often insulted by the Dominican mentors. He also condemned the archaic method of instruction at UST. He described comically the teaching of physics devoid of laboratory experiments. Students could not even touch the different laboratory apparatus and equipment, as they were always kept inside display cabinets. Moreover, favoritism and skin color, not meritocracy, and intellectual brilliance were the criteria for judging the actual academic performance of students. Rizal had his first taste of Spanish brutality during his first summer vacation at Calamba after his freshman year at UST. While he was walking in the street, he failed to see the man passing by owing to the darkness of the night. Because he was not able to recognize the man who happened to be the lieutenant of the Guardia Civil, Rizal did not bother to salute nor greet him. Buenas noches. Since the lieutenant was expecting that he be treated with respect and courtesy by everybody in the town, what he did was to whip out his sword and slash it at Rizal's back. Rizal was wounded. He sent a written complaint to Governor General Primo de Rivera about the incident. Nothing positive came out from his complaint, considering that he was an Indio. This incident left a deep impression on Rizal, cognizant of his dignity and of his ability to compete with a Spaniard on equal terms. He found that as an Indio, he was not accorded equally with the Spaniard before the bar of justice. According to Schumacher, his demand for recognition of equality of Filipinos and Spaniard was to obsess Rizal's thought in the years to come, and its denial would provoke him into a clash with offenders no matter what the cause. After completing his fourth year in the medical course, Rizal decided to leave the country for Europe. This was due in part by his disappointment with his schooling at the University of Santo Tomas. While obviously Rizal was to leave the country to complete his medical course in Barcelona, Spain, this was not the real reason for his sudden departure. This was evident from the Paciano's letter to Rizal dated May 26, 1882. From the foregoing correspondence, it is very clear that Rizal was going to Europe not just to complete his medical studies there. There were hidden purposes for his voyage to a new world. It can be inferred from Paciano's letter to Rizal that the following were the real purpose of Rizal's voyage to Europe: to make a name for himself in the realm of journalism, to observe and study European society, and to prepare himself for the task of liberating the Filipinos from Spanish tyranny.